I've got the iPhone Air and the iPhone Pro Max here. Apple dropped 4 new iPhones this year, but the base iPhone 17 hasn't changed much. The big changes are in the Pro models, and then there's the Air, which is completely new. Reactions have been mixed. Some people love the design changes, some don't. So let's talk about the design and start with the Pro Max over here. The 17 Pro Max this year looks very utilitarian. Gone is the camera bump we've had since the iPhone 11 Pro. Now this is a huge camera plateau. I don't hate it, but I think I still prefer the older design from the 16 Pro Max over here. Maybe this will grow on me, but for now I still prefer the older design. That said, design is not how it looks. The unibody enclosure here pushes the iPhone forward. On paper, this iPhone 17 Pro Max is about 5 or 4 grams heavier than this phone. But in my hands, this feels lighter. And I think it's because of the curved edges on the phone. Mind you, this is still a heavy phone, but for my hands, it feels lighter than the model it's replacing. The more controversial change is the materials. For years, Pro iPhones have separated themselves with stainless steel and then titanium. This year, we are going back to aluminium. Well, we are going to aluminium because this is the first Pro iPhone made out of aluminium. Titanium over here on my 16 Pro Max is much more stronger and durable, at least in my experience. I've had this phone for a year and I've had the 15 Pro Max before this as well, and I've never put a case on them. And the edges of this phone looks brand new. I do not know if this phone, the iPhone 17 Pro Max, will age like that. Apple's reasoning is that the aluminium makes the unibody possible and helps with the thermals. And to be fair, the iPhone 17 Pro Max doesn't get as hot as the iPhone 16 Pro Max, or even the iPhone Air over here. The vapor chamber is doing its job. So why would Apple go heavier, thicker, and less premium? Here's how I see it. Remember the MacBook Pros with the touch bar? It was thin, sleek, but it was compromised. It didn't have enough ports, it had average battery life, and the thermals were bad. Then Apple went big. It made the bigger 16-inch MacBook Pro. It solved all those issues. Same with the Apple Watch Ultra. Apple was getting restricted by the size, so they made a bigger watch. And now if you look at the base iPhone 17 this year, it has Pro Motion. So the everyday user gets premium features too. The real Pro features are locked to the Pro iPhones this year. So if this Pro iPhone is function over form, surely Apple wants to show off a model that's premium, is thin, and it looks great, right? That's where the iPhone Air comes in. This is hands down the most premium feeling iPhone this year, and in a big time. I would say even since the iPhone 10. It's thin, sleek, and futuristic. Yes, it has a lot of compromises, mostly on camera and battery, but when you hold it, it looks like the future that you're holding today. It's almost so light it feels fake, but in a good way. And because this iPhone Air is much slimmer and thinner and lighter than the Pro, the whole operating system feels faster. I know it's not faster, and this iPhone, if anything, has one less core than the iPhone Pro Max. One less GPU core, that is. But it's not technically faster, but it feels faster. And that's because this whole phone is light. It's funny how my brain tricks me to thinking that this is faster. If you are using an iPhone Pro, let it be the 17 Pro or even the 16 or even an older phone, just go into an Apple store and hold this phone. You will know what I'm talking about. But just be warned though, if you pick this up, all the other iPhones will look bulky and heavy. To make the iPhone Air thin, Apple had to make some compromises. The battery and the camera are the obvious ones, but there are some other ones as well. The dynamic island now sits a bit lower than usual. So if you look here, the dynamic island is kind of pushed down, and that's because you need space for the camera module at the back. And also, I think for the first time ever, the selfie camera is on the left of the dynamic island, whereas in the past, we've always had it on the right-hand side here. Again, another compromise. Another thing at the back is that this radius and this, the camera plateau radius, does not line up properly. It does line up with the lens though, but again, if you're nitpicking, these things can bother you. And if you're into design, these things can bother you. There's only one speaker over here at the top, and there's no stereo sound. This phone is eSIM only. And then my favorite thing I like to point out is that the charging port is misaligned. It's not exactly at the bottom. On a side note, I think this phone should have gone portless, but that's a conversation for later. And then, talking about cameras, you don't get the ultra wide and the telephoto. This also means you miss out on macro photography and spatial video and all that. And then, because this phone is so slim, there's performance and throttling issues. Titanium might have a say in that. Even with all that, this Air feels like the biggest iPhone since the iPhone 10. Apple is rumored to come up with a foldable next year. I imagine the foldable will be like 2 iPhone Airs stuck together. This is Apple experimenting with a thin phone all ready for their foldable next year. And here's how I see the lineup. The base iPhone 17 is for everyone. The Pro and Pro Max are tools for creatives and professionals who need the extra features. And the Air, this phone, is the experiment. The glimpse of the future, the one that Johnny Ive and Steve Jobs would be really proud of. If you made it this far in this video, thanks for watching. I've got more iPhone 17 content coming up, so if you found this helpful, please consider subscribing. That definitely helps the channel grow. I'll see you in the next one.